Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After the Dark Show for March 22nd, 2024. We're going to be looking at the fantasy football impact of all the free agent signings and the trades that happen. We talked about the grades for all these signings and all of our thoughts, but I thought it'd be cool to talk about how, the fantasy football landscape is going to change with all these moves that have been made. So we're going to focus on the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends in the show. And we're going to give our thoughts on how, their players' stocks may have improved or worsened. So you're going to get into all that. So really looking forward to this topic. Joined once again by Kenny, the president of thecapIsFake.com. Kenny, how are you?
Oh, bro, I'm just drinking my Diet Coke here, a little cancer juice, as you call it. And that's insensitive. I'm sorry.
Who care about insensibility here? I actually I was at my dentist, and I've repeatedly said how bad my teeth are. Like I once had 18 cavities in one visit. I've had two tooth extractions and need a third. And so my dentist was talking to me. He's like, you really need to stop drinking soda. I'm like, I know, but I don't drink coffee. I need energy. And he's like, well, how about Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi? Like, that'll give you energy and there's no sugar in it. I'm like, yeah, but what about aspartame? And he's like, well, that's true. Well, it's either cancer or tooth loss. I'm like, well.
Oh, God. What a terrible choice.
Yeah, right. So, I'll take the implants, even though they cost like $1 million. The tooth extraction is $1,200 and the implants is $2,500. So it's quite the bill. But yeah, it's better than the alternative, I guess. So
That's true.
But anyway, as Mike, it's just very, very excited that Kenny is on. So we're gonna get into all that stuff. So before we do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that mean a lot to us. If you really want to help support the show, super chats is the way to go. We got 2 super chats yesterday from I'm blanking here suddenly from Degeneron and John Sanders. It was really cool to get super chats from them. It really helps us out a lot, because I say it so many times, YouTube ads pay nothing. Like even a $2 super chat is like 10x sometimes what we make on YouTube ads. So it really, really helps us out a lot. So all right. So I thought we'd start with the trades first, just because there are fewer of them, and I feel like they may have been more impactful. Let's scroll down to the beginning of the trade the trades in the offseason. We had Jerry Jeudy going to the Browns from the Broncos. I actually graded the extension. He just signed an extension. There's 3 years, $58 million. You can read it on the site. But as far as Jeudy going to the Browns, do you like him better this year, or do you think you're going to get more of the same from him?
I lost you for a second there. I'm having technical difficulties over here.
Did you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I asked Jerry Jeudy joined the Browns. Do you like him more now, or do you like him less, or what?
I probably have the same, but I didn't like him before, so that's probably nice, Mike, nice emojis there. I was kind of down on him going into last year, and I think this guy, I feel like there's a lot of people who still are optimistic on Jerry Jeudy. I think it's safe to call him a first-round bust at this point. And I think it's odd that most people haven't really gotten there already, when I think the evidence is there that he's not as good as what we thought coming out of college. So, I don't like him much here. Have the Browns produced fantastic fantasy options over the last couple of years? Not exactly been a bastion of offensive production. I'm not sure what we're going to get from the quarterback position there. It's hard to like Jerry Jeudy. I didn't really like him last year. I can't imagine this would make me more confident in him. So, I'm not super excited about him.
I actually kind of liked Jerry Jeudy last year because he had a great finish to his 2022 season, and he was the first round pick. So I thought, he was taking him the next step and everything like that. He seemed to develop a great rapport with Russell Wilson, but all that went away. Like, he just did nothing last year. He got outproduced by Cortland Sutton, who's not an elite receiver by any means. Like, I like Sutton, but Jeudy should be outproducing Sutton, and he didn't. So I'm not high on him either, but it does seem like Cleveland is a better location for him, just because Denver doesn't have a quarterback at the moment, just by default. But I'm not going to be rushing to draft Jeudy. By the way, Jerry Jeudy, his stats from last year, when you compare him to another receiver, I want you to try to guess this receiver. Jerry Jeudy had 4 more catches. He had 12 fewer yards and 2 fewer touchdowns than this starting receiver for an NFL team. Who do you think that is? It's to be tough to guess, but it's an NFC East receiver. I'll give you that hint.
He had 4 more catches.
Jeudy had 4 more catches, 12 fewer yards, and two fewer touchdowns. And yards per reception was 1.4 less than this NFC East receiver.
Julio Jones.
No, it was no, Julio barely did anything last year. It was Darius Slayton.
Okay.
So Julio Jones. So
I undershot there. Okay.
Yeah. So like Jerry Jeudy and Darius Slayton were basically the same receiver last year. Which is crazy if you think about it, because Jeudy was the first round pick and Slayton seen as like a receiver 3 at best, right?
Right. Those guys were drafted like 10 rounds apart.
Right. Yeah. Patrick says, if you ever needed a reason to end the Fed, just look at the Jerry Jeudy contract. Yeah, we could come up with many reasons to end the Fed.
Many reasons.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson, worst president of all time. I think I mean that's one of many reasons. I totally agree with that. But I don't think we need much of a reason to end the Fed anyway, all right, so let's scroll up. Mac Jones, I feel like we don't need to discuss him because he's just going to be a backup. Defensive trades here is just so okay. The Texans acquired Joe Mixon, so the Texans are going to be starting Mixon instead of Devin Singletary. I guess Dameon Pierce is still on the roster, but sounds like Mixon is going to be the starting running back, or at least for the time being. So, how do you like Mixon on Houston rather than Cincinnati?
I think this is a slight upgrade for Mixon in terms of situation. I mean, maybe we could argue that Joe Burrow is a better quarterback, obviously, but CJ Stroud has had a great season last year. I think the offensive line and offensive supporting cast generally be better. I expect the Texans to take a step forward. And so I like this for him. I've always been slightly higher on Mixon than most people, not dramatically, but I feel like I've always ranked him slightly higher than kind of where his ADP. So I've owned a lot of Mixon over the years, and looked at last year. You watched games him play. He looks like he's still got the juice. I expect him to have at least 1 or 2 really productive years. So I don't think it's crazy to think he could have one of the best, statistical seasons in his career, coming into 2024. So I think this is not a dramatic bump, but I think this is a slight bump for Mixon.
I think Houston has a better chance of fielding a better offensive line, just because they're going to have more cap space with a quarterback under a rookie contract rather than Joe Burrow, who's paid a lot. So I think I kind of agree with that. It's maybe a slight upgrade. Mixon was awful in 2022, but I think it's because he was nursing some sort of injury that was undisclosed for a while, and then we kind of found out about it after the season. And then last year he rebounded, but he still wasn't great. But the blocking wasn't very good either. So it's hard to tell like what you're going to get out of Mixon, just because the Cincinnati's offensive line has been a problem for so many years. Yeah. And so I think there's definitely some upside. I mean, I expect both teams to be going into the second round of the playoffs at the very least. So, as far as like winning and like touchdown equity, like I don't think that's going to change much in Houston. But like I said, I think there's a better chance for a superior offensive line.
Nice.
Okay. All right. So we keep scrolling up. Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell not worth talking about because they're not going to start. All right. So Bears get Keenan Allen from the Chargers. So Keenan Allen no longer playing with Justin Herbert. Obviously Herbert, a super talented quarterback, and got the most out of Keenan Allen. And I guess vice versa, like Keenan Allen helped develop Justin Herbert too. But now Keenan Allen's going to another top 6 pick. And in fact, Caleb Williams could be number 1 overall. So Keenan Allen's going to be trying to develop another young quarterback. So for me, I think this is a downgrade for Allen just because Herbert has more experience, but I don't think it's that much of a downgrade because Caleb Williams is so talented. However, there is an unknown factor, like number 1 picks have busted before. So I would have preferred Allen to stay with the Chargers, but I still like him. I still like him with the Bears, just slightly less. What do you think?
I think this is about neutral, about the same. I think it's a lateral move. I expect the Bears offense to be decent. I mean, they've added some real weapons. Caleb Williams, I think, will be an upgrade. I don't watch college football. You know better than I do, but everything I read about this guy is that he's a fantastic prospect. And so Justin Fields was just really erratic in the passing game. So if Keenan Allen had been there with Fields, I think that would be a downgrade. And if you watch Keenan Allen's game, his style of play is the type of game that lends itself to being effective even late into a career, because he's never been a speedster. His game is not predicated on speed. His game is predicated on being a perfect route runner, and he is one of maybe the best route runner in the NFL over the last several seasons. I mean, he is open all the time, and that type of stuff doesn't go away even if your speed erodes. He was still great in this for the second half of the year last year. So I expect him to be the same type of player, and maybe a change of pace and a slightly better, scenery with a young quarterback. Maybe that's a shot in the arm. I'm willing to think this is a neutral move, or maybe even a slight upgrade in some ways.
Yeah, it could be an upgrade. But like I said, I think there is some downside with Williams because there is no guarantee that he's gonna be great. I mean, right. Like everyone thought Jamarcus Russell was gonna be awesome. Well, maybe not everyone, but Al Davis thought he had the best pro day workout of all time.
I mean, I don't think it's fair to compare Caleb Williams to Jamarcus Russell, but that feels unfair.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bigger bust risk with Russell for sure, but he had immense upside. But like I said, I mean, there have been other number one quarterbacks who have busted in the past. So there's a chance that happens. So I feel like that's the one slight downgrade for Allen, because there is some unknown factor. But I think overall, I think you're right. Overall, it's probably going to be neutral. Although Allen getting older is not going to be good for his injury risk. Eagles get Kenny Pickett. Were you on? Have you been on since that trade?
I have not been, actually.
What do you think of that Kenny Pickett trade?
I thought it was fine. I mean, at the end of the day, if the Eagles are, wow, you graded them a D. I'd like to understand your thought there. You're getting they want a decent, no, I want to say good, but they want a decent backup. Marcus Mariota was terrible last year in the preseason, terrible in the little bit he played in the regular season, and they paid him a heck of a lot of money. I think Kenny Pickett is a legitimate upgrade, maybe not a huge upgrade, a slight upgrade from Marcus Mariota for about a third or a fourth of the cost. So, they're getting 2 years at cheap dollars. That's why they did this trade. They made this trade because they just wanted a cheap backup. Kenny Pickett's not going to start. He's not going to play. He's not going to get any, unless Hurts is injured. So, but you need a decent backup who can, manage games for you. If you're, Hurts has missed a game or two every year of his career. So you want a guy. I have more confidence in Kenny Pickett than Marcus Mariota at this point. And the other backup options, Joe Flacco got $8 million. I mean, who are the other backup options? So it's you're going to pay a guy $1.4 million for an okay backup. I don't know. I think it's fine. They gave up the draft value, depending on what draft trade you use. The value they gave up was worth about a 5th round pick. And so using about a 5th round pick on a backup quarterback, I think is fine. So I'm very surprised to see you rated a D. That's very surprising by that. I'd like to understand what is there something about Kenny Pickett you just absolutely hate, or what is that about?
I never liked him coming into college. I didn't think he should have been a 1st round pick. I thought he was 2nd round talent at best. And honestly, I don't think he's that much better than Tanner McKee. So I think I'd rather have that draft pick in the 3rd round and Tanner McKee than I'd rather have the 4th rounder and Kenny Pickett. I just think that moving back that far, across 3rd round to 4th round is significant. It's very significant. And getting a guy who's not even going to play, he's going to play 2 games maybe, and he's probably going to lose those 2 games because he sucks. I really don't understand. They could have signed any real backup quarterback. I want to just take a look.
Again, they would have cost way more. That's the thing. Right, Joe Flacco got $8 million to be a backup. Right, I mean,
sure.
How much was Mason Rudolph? I mean, he's worse than Kenny Pickett. He got $3.6 million.
I think he's better than Kenny Pickett. He got $3.6 million.
He's not. Are you? What?
Did you not watch the Steelers last year? He outplayed
did.
Kenny Pickett by a wide margin. Like not even close. Like
He
was not even close. Ask any Steelers fan, they'll tell you Rudolph is better.
I have eyeballs. I watched a lot of the games. I don't care what the Steelers. You're wrong. Everyone watching Walter on this one is objectively wrong. Mason Rudolph is not better than Kenny Pickett. That is unbelievable. I'm shocked to hear you say this.
I don't think Rudolph is more talented than Pickett, but Rudolph is a smarter quarterback than Pickett. Pickett was just off. Pickett was terrible last year.
I haven't disagreed with you this much in years. I can't even. Who cares? These guys are idiots. They're all dumb. Like, why do we care? I can't. I'm just genuinely surprised that you think Mason Rudolph is better than Kenny Pickett. I'm legitimately surprised.
I think he played better last year. I'm not saying he's more talented. Like I said, like Pickett has more talent, but Rudolph played much better than Pickett last year. Not only better, but much better. Like it was not even close.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I guess I'm really surprised. I'm shocked to hear it.
Would love to hear some opinions, especially from Steelers fans in the chat about this.
Wow. Yeah. I guess Easton Stick got what? He got $5 million. I mean.
Well, Tyler Huntley got the minimum, 1 year minimum. I'd rather have Huntley at the minimum than giving up my 3rd round pick. Carson Wentz, Carson Wentz is out there. Why not get him?
They're not going to get back to Carson Wentz. They were never going to get.
Why? I'd rather have Wentz than Pickett.
They're not going to bring back Wentz just because of the history there. It's
okay. That's fair. All right, fair enough. But it was different coaching staff, but still.
To me, Kenny Pickett's under contract for 2 years for a grand total of $2.6 million over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I guess I see more talent in Pickett, and I think he's the kind of guy they could develop, be a good backup, and maybe he stays as a backup. Maybe he likes it in Philly. He grew up a Philly, an Eagles fan. Maybe he likes it and decides to be a long-term backup in Philly for the next decade. Like, I think that's what they're looking for, right? They're looking, and no organization more than the Eagles know the value of the backup quarterback, right? Like, so I think they value the backup position more than most.
Mike with the right answer. Pickett versus Rudolph. I cast my vote for neither.
Yeah, I guess I just was so. I did not think you were gonna. I didn't realize what you thought of Pickett.
This goes back to his college days. I was never a fan.
You're way more down on him than I am. Yeah, ultimately that makes sense why you would grade it a D.
Yeah, I thought he should have been a 2nd round pick, but he got moved up to the 1st round. The only reason he got drafted in the 1st round, by the way, because the Steelers owner vowed never to pass on a Pittsburgh quarterback ever again after passing on Dan Marino. So he promised. He said the next time there's a good Pittsburgh quarterback, I'm going to draft him in the 1st round. That's the only reason why I drafted Kenny Pickett. Really. And then he just gave up on him after 2 years. but to be fair, they did get Justin Fields. But still, it's very funny how it's just like the quick 180 after making that promise.
Yep. I thought Pickett was good. Mason Rudolph, I'm like, I don't know if the guy belongs in the NFL. But
he played so well down the stretch. What are you talking about? He's so good. Well. He was so good down the stretch, man. That Seattle game, he was great in that game. Come on.
I'll have to go back and watch the Seattle game. I guess I don't remember him being good.
He was excellent in the 2nd half.
I will go back. Maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it's too much Diet Coke has impacted my memory.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Patrick asking, did CJ Stroud have the best rookie quarterback season of all time? Only comparable I see is RJ3 and Dak.
Andrew Luck.
Luck is up there. Cam Newton had a really good rookie season. But I mean, CJ Stroud, I think, had the best one statistically. He took his team to the 2nd round of the playoffs. Now, if you want to judge on success, like Brock Purdy went to the NFC Championship, and who knows if he didn't get hurt, maybe they would have won. But the quarterbacks just don't go far into the playoffs, and Stroud took him to the 2nd round. Plus, he had the great stats, so I think you can definitely make the case.
Andrew Luck threw for over 4,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, as a rookie, with a really bad Colts team around them.
Yep.
And a terrible offensive line.
Yeah.
And he rushed for a few touchdowns as well that year. So,
yeah.
I think Stroud had a phenomenal season. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dogging him by any means, but I think I would put Luck. Although statistically, I guess Dan Marino's rookie year back in the 80s, but I was like 3 years old or whatever when that was happening, or 1 year old, whatever it was. I don't know.
Yeah, we were both 1 year old.
Yeah,
so we're
yeah.
the same age. My view on Pickett season 2 could have a good sophomore season. Pickett season 3, I hear the Permanente brothers are hiring. Pickett in the preseason last year was amazing. Remember he threw like nothing but touchdowns on his throws. It was like deep touchdown, and it's like, oh my god, this guy's gonna be awesome. It's just like lesson learned. Don't pay attention to the preseason for quarterbacks at least.
By the way, Permanente Brothers may be the most overrated sandwich shop in America.
Wow, shots fired. I've never had it. I've never been to Pittsburgh, so I don't know.
So overrated. Sorry, guys.
Is it really?
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's fine.
It's just fine. Okay,
it's fine.
Okay,
but all the Yinzers love it.
Yeah. I'll take your word for it. I don't know. Maybe it's like one of those things where like a city's known for something, but like it's really not that great. I feel I don't know. I feel like that happens a lot. Like, like everyone talks about like with cheesesteaks, like Pat versus Geno's, stuff like that. But like there's so many cheesesteak places in Philly that are not known that are really good, and like you don't have to go to one of those big ones.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay, so
it was way too much Kenny Pickett talk.
That's true. Although Mike says, I seem to recall Jamarcus Russell throwing a 60-yard pass while sitting down for Al Davis. Do you remember that? I remember something like that. I remember Kyle Bowler being able to throw like 60 yards from his knees.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's not like it looks impressive, but then you're like, why? How's this apply to an NFL game? It's kind of silly. Anyway, so let's get to the next trade here. And this kind of links up with our first signing. So Steelers acquired Justin Fields from the Bears, and also Steelers signed Russell Wilson. So what do you think is going to happen here? What do you think about these quarterbacks? Do you think Wilson's going to start the whole year, or do you think Fields is going to take over? What do you think?
I've got to imagine at some point Fields is going to get some legitimate playing time. Russell Wilson's statistics from last year look decent. He was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the Broncos were really trying to hide. Like, they didn't let him – he'd never drop back to pass and scan the whole field. They cut the field in half, and he'd basically just scan one half of the field, high percentage throws. It was schemed to get short passes open. They clearly didn't trust him. It's obvious. The coaching staff did not trust him, and at first chance they got rid of him. And so Russell Wilson he's lost it. I mean, he's not the same player. Justin Fields, I think, is a way better option long term. And if you're the Steelers, you got to take a shot at Justin Fields, particularly when you consider what they gave up for him, which is, almost nothing. I mean, it's ridiculous. A conditional 6-round pick. So you got to imagine at some point the Steelers are going to get Fields in to get some legitimate playing time, because Wilson is not a long-term option.
Yeah, I mean, we completely disagreed on Kenny Pickett, but we totally are in lockstep with Russell Wilson, he was horrible last year, and like there's so many people defending him on Twitter or whatnot, like when he was benched, and every time I saw that, I'm like, man, you have not watched him at all this year. Just look at the stats. All of his great production came when they were down like 2 or 3 touchdowns. Like this would happen like almost every game. Like the Broncos would fall down like 14 to 21 points, and then like Russell Wilson would be terrible. And then when they were down 14 or 21, he would look great. Like he would start throwing like these bombs. He would run all around. He scored touchdowns, and then he creeped back to within 7 points or like 3 points, and then he'd fumble or throw a killer interception. This happened all the time, like almost every game. And so like, yeah, I completely agree. He's done. I think Fields needs to start at some point. I would expect Wilson is the veteran to like open training camp as the starter. And, I don't know if they're going to even play in the preseason that much, but like, I think by October or mid-October, I feel like Fields is going to be the starter by then. Right. If not sooner.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So,
and I think it's better for the fantasy options, by the way, as well. I mean,
yeah,
I think they're not that I think Fields is great, but I think the fantasy options are better off with Fields at quarterback than Wilson.
I definitely agree. All right, so the Bears signing DeAndre Swift. There's a whole like carousel of running back moves. This is the first one outside of Mixon that we're going to talk about. What do you think about Swift going to the Bears?
I think it's fine. I mean, man, you give it a million grade. Wow, you have been. I did not think it was that bad. I thought it was fine. But anyway, from a fantasy perspective, I still don't know what DeAndre Swift is. And maybe at this point in his career, he's been in the league now. He's 4 seasons, I guess. If by the 4th season, you don't know what a player is, that's probably not a good sign. Mm-hmm. We see moments of great talent from Swift, but we also just see, I remember in Hard Knocks last year, when he was his last year with the Lions. Oh, you never watched Hard Knocks?
I've never watched a single episode, so I don't remember. Sorry.
So I've seen a little bit here and there. I've watched very little of it, but I've watched some. Anyway, I remember Deuce Staley, the running back coach of the Lions at the time, just on Swift, just like, hey, finish your run, One of Staley's frustrations was he felt like Swift never finishes runs, like would run and then like could always get 2 or 3 extra yards, but seemed to give up too soon on the play. And I never really noticed that, never really realized it. And then playing for the Eagles all year, obviously as an Eagles fan watching every game, I felt like I saw that in a way that I don't think I would have noticed before. I'm like, wow, it really does seem like this guy just doesn't have a nose for kind of the extra little light, that little crease, that little vision, that some running backs are just so good at. Obviously LaShawn McCoy was great at it, and obviously Le'Veon Bell, like those are some of the best ever at it. But like they can see the little crease and just hit it hard. He's kind of the opposite. Not as bad as Miles Sanders was. Watched him for many years. So DeAndre Swift. I mean, he just went to the Pro Bowl. Just had a 1,000-yard season. But I think that was more to do with the Eagles' offensive line and even in a broken system. And so, I think this is a downgrade for Swift overall. I still think he's a good player. I think he's decent. I still think he'll be worthy of being drafted in fantasy drafts and in the first few rounds. But I think I would imagine he takes a slight step back in Chicago. I also think this is going to be a significant passing offense. Like I just foresee this is going to be they want the rookie to just throw it all over the place. Like that's going to be my assumption. And Swift caught a lot of balls early in his career, but that kind of faded. And so, I could easily see. And then of course we got Khalil Herbert there. I'm the president of the Khalil Herbert fan club. Khalil Herbert is as good or maybe a better runner than Swift. So I can't imagine that it's going to be the Swift, controls the backfield. I'd imagine it's going to be a split of some sort. Maybe not 50-50, maybe it's 60-40, whatever. So I can see this being a step back for Swift.
So I feel like you made a great argument for a million grade here, and I'm kind of curious as to why you don't think it should be a million grade.
Well, I don't think it's that bad, I guess. That's what I'm saying. I mean, to me, it's like a C+.
Oh, wow. Man, I wish I took your class in college because I feel like I get good grades here. Man, I think I hated the signing so much. Like, you had Aaron Jones getting 1 year, $7 million. You had Austin Ekeler getting 2 years, $11 million. I know Eckler's coming off a down year, but he was injured last year. In fact, before the injury, he looked great in the opener against Miami. The other running backs signed cheaply. Like, there's no reason to pay a very injury prone running back like Swift $8 million a year when you already have Khalil Herbert and also Roschon Johnson. You said you're the president of the Khalil Herbert fan club. If so, I'm the VP. Like, I like him a lot as well. And so I was just really disappointed that, I like Roschon Johnson too. So I was like really disappointed that they signed a running back for this much when they already had 2 solid running backs on their team. Now, like, you can argue Swift maybe a little bit better, but like only a little bit. And like, it's just not enough to warrant this sort of contract, especially when you could sign running backs for much cheaper. And I just think Swift is just too much of a risk here for a long-term deal. I think this is an awful signing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of your points. I guess I don't. Maybe it's not as dire. I actually kind of forgot about Roschon Johnson and then you kind of forgot he existed. And so, Kenny with grade inflation, that's me. And so I kind of forgot about Roschon Johnson. Yeah, that's a crowded backfield. And from a fantasy perspective, that kind of kills all of them. I mean, it kind of makes it hard to, which I think what will end up happening is I'll just like whichever one's being drafted the latest. Like, that'll pretty much, if Swift is like I don't know if Swift is like a 5th round running back or 4th round running back, and Khalil Herbert is like going in like in the 7th round, Roshan Johnson's going like in the 13th round, like I'm going to be on Johnson.
Yeah, me too. I feel like it's a situation to avoid. Like a 2 running back committee is like a headache enough, and like now they have a 3 running back committee. Like, is this where we're trending? Because back in the day when we first started playing fantasy, it was like most teams only had 1 running back, and then like slowly but surely, like teams transitioned to 2. Now, like you still have some single running back systems here in the NFL still, but most of the teams are using 2, and like now I feel like now teams are using 3. So it's just getting worse and worse with these running backs. So
I just try to look and see if there was any early ADPs on a fantasy calculator, and there's not. I can't find any.
Yeah, I think you're probably gonna have a hard time finding stuff until the draft happens. Yeah. If Swift is going 4th or 5th round, that's way too early. That's a complete player to avoid.
Maybe I'm over. That's my guesstimate. Is my assumption is that that's about the range he'll go in.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all. I think you're probably right. It's just a major player to avoid in the 4th or 5th round, especially given his injury history. It's not like if you were to save a running back, I could maybe make the case for it. Like he's just going to get hurt at some point. That's what he always does. You can't like that, especially in this heavy committee.
Yeah.
All right. So we move on. Our 3rd running back, we're going to get to Tony Pollard, who's coming off a terrible season with Dallas, but he had a broken leg. And I feel like that contributed to his disappointing season because we saw him be very explosive beforehand. So I think there's a chance. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No. So I think there's a chance he rebounds to the player that we thought we were going to have last year. That said, I still graded this signing poorly just because like the Titans are not going anywhere. Like why? Like they're like 3 years away from being a playoff contender. It's like, why are they signing a running back to a 3-year deal? It's like an expensive deal. It seems like such a nonsense move. Like I feel like the Titans should just draft a running back. They already have Tajay Spears anyway. Like why are they wasting their time with Tony Pollard? It just seems so dumb. But anyway, I think this is a downgrade for Pollard just because Tennessee's offensive line is not nearly as good as Dallas's offensive line. So even though Pollard's going to be healthier, I just think this is a bad situation for him. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the assessment that he was like how you define disappointing. Like he didn't score, he didn't get the touchdown, but like you look at for most of the second 2/3 of the season, he was equally as explosive in 2023 as in 2022. Like I think there's a narrative that like, oh, he wasn't as good. I'm like, I'm watching it. He's just as good, if not better. He had a slow start, but he was really good in the second half of the year. He didn't score a touchdown. Like the stats weren't there, but he looked really good. He actually had a couple down the stretch. He scored some touchdowns. Like he was kind of dumb luck. He's getting tackled at the 1 yard line, and, holding a touchdown, get called back by holding. Like it was kind of weird, fluky. It wasn't that he was bad. So I guess the narrative that he wasn't as good, I'm just not sure I buy that. And so I'm much higher on this because I actually think he was actually mostly good last year. But I think people are down on him. And so if that wasn't the case, this probably would have cost the Titans more. They probably would have given him $10 million a year, $12 million a year. And then you would have been giving him the quadruple million a grade. But so I think they got Pollard at a slight discount than they otherwise would have paid for him because of some of the unluck there. So from a real football standpoint, I agree with you. This doesn't make sense based on where they are. Signing a back like Pollard doesn't make sense. Unless they really believe in Will Levis and think Levis is going to be great. Maybe that's the confidence they have. But this doesn't make sense from a real football standpoint. From a fantasy standpoint, I actually kind of like this a little bit. And so, yeah, I think he's going to be just fine. And Tajay Spears, who I like as well, but I mean, he's a different style player. So I think this is maybe a lateral move from a fantasy standpoint, not from a true NFL standpoint.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Although, Kenny, I don't think anyone in the world has more Tony Pollard elite Rainmaker cards than I do. And I can tell you firsthand that he was very disappointing in fantasy, at least last year. Now, maybe
statistically, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
With the touchdowns, sure. Yeah. It's still, maybe that had something to do with my negative grade here. I will admit that I might be biased with that one.
I was actually really hoping the Eagles would sign him.
They got Saquon Barkley. Do you want to
they got someone better?
Yeah, let's skip ahead and then come back. Eagles got Saquon Barkley for 3 years, $37 million. you got to love this for Barkley. Like, he was on a Giants team with a horrible offensive line. Outside of Andrew Thomas, they had nothing up front. And now he goes to one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. Like, you got to think that Barkley's going to have a huge season. That the only downside I feel like with Barkley is that if it's at the 1 yard line, they're just going to tush push into the end zone. And so he might lose scoring equity that way, but he's going to be in a much better offense. He's going to have so many other scoring opportunities. So I feel like that's going to balance out or maybe even exceed what he's done in the past with the Giants. So I really love this move. What do you think? First for fantasy and also real life, what do you think?
From a real life standpoint, I love it as an Eagles fan. I think it's a fantastic addition. He's the style of player they need, and it's effectively a 2-year, $25 million deal. Like that's effectively what it is. They could get out of it at the end of the second year if they wanted to, with pretty minimal dead money. So it's actually, it's a slight overpay for running back, but not terrible. So I like it from that standpoint. I think the Eagles need this. I think more than anything, I think Jalen Hurts needs this. And so Jalen Hurts regressed last year. And I think he's the kind of guy that they need. From a fantasy standpoint, I mean, the only thing that stops this Barkley from being a phenomenal, fantasy option is injury. And he has been injured in his career, so there's a risk there for sure. But I mean, I saw a PFF advanced analytics a couple days ago. Run blocking win rate. The Eagles ranked number 1 in the NFL last year. The percentage of times in which the offensive linemen on the Eagles would win at the point of contact by PFF's rubric was number 1. They won more often. The Giants last year were 31st out of. I don't know if you guys know. There's 32 teams in the NFL. So, 31st.
Do you remember who was last?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay.
That's really bad. And the quarterback Daniel Jones was terrible. That offense was terrible. The scheme was terrible. And that's been the case for most of Saquon's career in New York. They've had terrible offensive system around him and terrible offensive line play. And he has put up phenomenal numbers. He's had 2 years that were just off the charts monster with really bad system around him. You don't even need Saquon to be that. You don't need him to be 2020 Saquon or 2018 Saquon. You don't need that version of Saquon for him to return first round fantasy value. He can be 80% of that and could still end up being, one of the top 3 running backs in the league next year, fantasy wise. Like that's, and so I easily foresee that. I also think the tush push, Jason Kelce retiring, Cam Jurgens moving from right guard to center. I wonder if a big part of the tush push is Jason Kelce, and they got a new center. Cam Jurgens is a good player, so maybe they keep it, but I wonder if, okay, listen, we got a new center. We want to try to keep Hurts as healthy as possible. We have Saquon. Maybe we run it more on the 1 yard line than we did in the past. I could see that being a shift in this coming year. So I think from a fantasy perspective, this is awesome. I don't think he'll make the same impact that McCaffrey made on the Niners. I don't think it's going to be that level, but I don't think it will be far off from that either. I easily think Saquon's worthy of a top 5 fantasy pick next year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So asking, what percentage of running back contracts are typically guaranteed nowadays? There's such high injury risk, it seems. Do you have an answer for this?
I don't know. In previous year, this year, significant percentages of them were guaranteed. The Aaron Jones contract was, I think, almost the entire thing is fully guaranteed. Mm-hmm. The Swift contract had a huge chunk. Saquon's is pretty much more than 2/3. 25 million of it was guaranteed, or 26 million, whatever it is, something like that. So pretty significant chunks guaranteed compared to, at least it wasn't how it was in the past over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back a little bit here to a Jaguar signing. It was, let me just look. It was Gabe Davis for 3 years, 39 million. Obviously the signing was terrible, but Calvin Ridley's gone. We'll talk about Ridley in a bit. So Gabe Davis is going to be presumably the number 2, with Christian Kirk still there as the number 1. So my feeling is Gabe Davis did not produce consistently with Josh Allen. Like,
Yeah.
why would he produce consistently with Trevor Lawrence? It's not like he had a bad quarterback his whole career, and it's like,
Right.
oh, now he has Trevor Lawrence. He's had a great quarterbacking, and he was inconsistent. I feel like he's going to be one of those players in DraftKings where they chase. Like, he'll do nothing, like 4 points, 5 points, and then he'll go off. He'll have a monster game. He'll have like 31 points, and then everyone's going to play him the next week, and he's going to score 3 points. That's like what he's done his whole career. So I think the signing was awful for the financial aspect of it. And I really don't think Gabe Davis is going to gain anything from it. I think it's going to be neutral for him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he'll be the same when he was in Buffalo. I think he'll be this incredibly inconsistent player, which is like from a real NFL standpoint, having a guy like Gabe Davis who's got some speed, he's decent, he's decent down the field, so he can open up things underneath. Like, so from a real NFL standpoint, Doug Peterson's going to like having him in the scheme and utilize him, but like that's not going to translate to stats. He'll have one game where he has 4 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then in the next 5 games he'll have average 1 catch for 5 yards. That's going to be the Gabe Davis show, and so that's what it's been in Buffalo. That's what it will be in Jacksonville, I would imagine. The only difference, of course, is I'd imagine he's going to get drafted much sooner. I think there's going to be a significant jump in his ADP. The narrative is going to be, oh, they wouldn't have paid him that much if they weren't going to use him, which is that's a cardinal sin narrative to follow. I mean, it's just that language, that line of like, oh, they would have paid it. They're definitely going to use him because they paid him a lot. Players get paid sometimes and don't get used because they suck. And I think Gabe Davis is not good. So I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the case. I would imagine he's going to be. I don't know what his ADP was last year. I feel like he was getting drafted like in the 8th round last year, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 7th or 8th round. Yeah,
something like that. I think it's going to creep. I think people are going to be excited about Gabe Davis, and I can easily see it creeping. If he was going 7th or 8th last year, I could see it creeping into like 6th round, maybe even more. Like, but by the time we get to August, people are like, "Oh, 5th round pick, Gabe Davis. He's going to be amazing." I'm just okay. Y'all can have him.
People are going to talk themselves into it. I totally agree. I think he will go 5th or 6th round. And we will happily avoid him. I feel like there's one guy in our league who's going to draft him like 3rd round. And I think you know who that is.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it's he's someone to avoid for sure. We're gonna skip over these crappy tight ends who signed for like massive deals for some reason. Okay, we're now past Barkley. Oh, we get to Kirk Cousins. So the Falcons finally get their quarterback. It's kind of crazy that the Falcons almost made the playoffs last year, despite having some of the worst quarterbacking in the NFL. And now they get Kirk Cousins. Sure. Yeah, he's coming off a torn Achilles, but he's still going to be a massive upgrade over Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. Gotta love this for Drake London. You have to love this for Kyle Pitts. Even Pitts has been a big disappointment, but like now he gets a real quarterback, so you have to love that for him and Atlanta overall. So I feel like for Cousins himself is kind of neutral or maybe even slight downgrade because there's no Justin Jefferson. I like London a lot. He's not Jefferson. And then Jordan Addison. There's no like number 2 receiver like Jordan Addison. And so what do you think about Cousins' outlook for 2024?
The fact that he tore his Achilles, is a bummer. And, medical science comes such a long way. I mean, 25 years ago, Vinny Testaverde tore his Achilles, and it pretty much at about the same age that Kirk Cousins is right now. And it pretty much ended Testaverde's career. And it's remarkable to think about. Most people, pretty much the whole world, expects Kirk Cousins to completely rebound from this. So it just kind of shows where we're at in the last 25 years, which is awesome. But it makes me a little concerned. I mean, I will say this though: Kirk Cousins was playing probably the best football of his career in 2023, which is really bummed for him, bummed for the Vikings fans. That a lot of friends are Vikings fans, having lived in Minnesota for 6 years. Just real bummer for him. But if he's fully healthy, this is a huge upgrade for the Falcons offense compared to what they've had, the slop they've had over the years. Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota was terrible there. I mean, they've not been good, and so. This should be a pretty significant upgrade. I like this a lot for I still can't promise to draft Kyle Pitts anywhere where he'd probably be drafted. But I think this is a huge upgrade for the offense. And I think the biggest winner of all this is Bijan Robinson. Like this to me, like, okay, the offense is going to be functional. They'll have a real offensive play caller here. Like, Kirk Cousins will be able to move the offense. They'll get inside the red zone, and Bijan will actually score touchdowns. And Bijan on talent should be a top 3 running back in the NFL. Just the talent is there. And so this for me, when I saw the signing, I thought the biggest winner of this is Bijan. And now maybe Bijan's ADP creeps up to the place I don't want to draft him. But man, I could easily see Bijan being the number 1 running back next year.
Well, where would you not draft him? Where do you think he belongs?
Somewhere in the 6 to 9 range. I'd want to draft him.
Really? Okay. I would have thought maybe even top 5, like 5th or 6th. I off the top of my head, I'm just like
I'll have to think about it. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
right. He's not going to be ahead of McCaffrey, for example.
Yeah.
He's not. I don't think he's ahead of Breece Hall either. But who else is up there? You have Kyron Williams,
Saquon.
Right, Saquon. And who else? I mean, there's Jahmyr Gibbs as well. But there's still Dave Montgomery's still there. There's I assume Gibbs is gonna have more of a workload this year. But I mean, Montgomery's still there. It's still touchdowns.
And then you got the receivers. So maybe if you're in a league that you might want, maybe you want to go receiver in the first round.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Maybe he's higher. Maybe he's higher. I'll have to think about that. Yeah, maybe he's higher than 6 to 9.
Yeah, I think 5 or number 5 is fair. So yeah, I totally agree that that Robinson benefits from that, and also the coaching changed for obvious reasons. No more Cordell Patterson getting carries over Bijan. Hopefully, Giants getting Devin Singletary. Here's another running back move. You got to hate this for Singletary. He had such a great opportunity in Houston last year. Great blocking in front of him. He had an amazing season. Came out of nowhere because he was just bad in Buffalo. Now he goes to the Giants, as you said, the second worst run blocking grades in the NFL. They did add to their offensive line, so I assume that it's going to be better than 31st. Maybe it's like 24th or something. Still going to be pretty bad. Worse than Houston. So I have no interest in Singletary. What do you think?
Yeah, I do anticipate that their offensive line, in theory, should be better. Obviously, we won't ever know. We won't know until October, November, if that really, it takes time for new free agent, offensive linemen to gel with the existing players that are there. Yeah, this is a downgrade for Singletary, and I've always liked Singletary. I've generally been higher on him than kind of the market has been throughout his career. I've really liked him. But yeah, how can you not think of this as a downgrade? And it's a shame because I feel like the last few games of the year, they were finally using him a lot, and he was playing really well and playing smart. And so, yeah, I count me as the guy that probably won't own a lot of Devin Singletary this year.
Yeah, same here. All right, so we can skip Devin Duvernay. Let's keep going up. Let's see here. Drew Sample, not worth talking about. I don't think we should touch on Antonio Gibson unless you really want to. We have Austin Ekeler going to the Redskins, another major running back move. Like I said last year, his Miami game was amazing. He had a terrific game. He got hurt at the end of that game, and then he was out for a while, and then he tried to come back, and he just was bad. And I think he missed some action. Then he came back again and still was bad. And then his career ended early. His season ended early, not his career. It was career in LA at least. So now he goes to Washington. He's going to be the starter there, although he's going to share touches with Brian Robinson. So, I feel like he's not going to get the touchdowns. I think Robinson's more likely to get the touchdowns. So, I think it's a downgrade for Ekeler. But he's going to be healthier too than he was last year. So, I think that there's going to be a negative stigma attached to him based on how poorly he played last year. So, I feel like I'd like to buy him low, but again, he's going to lose the touchdown equity, I think. So, probably a slight downgrade. What do you think about Ekeler?
Yeah, I think maybe it's a slight downgrade from his opportunities last year. As long as he's fully healthy, of course, then he's still going to be. He's likely going to be the primary ball carrier there. He's going to get a lot of carries, I think, a lot of catches. So yeah, I mean, Ekeler. I've always kind of been not a big Ekeler fan, but he's proven me wrong. And I think his style of game, also a game that not predicated against huge speed. And he's a smart player. He's a small player, but he doesn't take a lot of contact. So I could see him being the kind of guy that kind of extends his career a little bit longer than maybe the average running back. And I like this a little bit for the Redskins, or the Red Tails, or the Commandos, or the Communists, whatever you want to call them. I like it a little. I like a little bit for them, but for him, this going from Justin Herbert to this is obviously a downgrade.
Yeah, Austin Ekeler, the man who cost me $100,000 in Rainmakers. I don't know if you know that story.
No, I don't.
It was week 12 of 2022. I was in first place in the elite contest for like the entire 4:00 window. It said currently winning $100,000. It's so great. It's just like 435, 536, 637, still in first place the entire time. And then at the end, it was the game where Josh Jacobs went nuts against Seattle in overtime. I had Jacobs there, a great lineup. And then at the very end, it was like the last game running. It was Charger versus, I think, Cardinals. And like Austin Ekeler had one run. It wasn't even a touchdown. He got like a 3-yard run. And like I just bumped from first to second. And it was a 1 yard that got me. If Ekeler had one fewer yard, I would have won $100,000 in that contest.
Wow.
So rough times.
Bad beat.
Yeah, that was brutal. Gardner Minshew, I feel like we can skip that one unless you really want to touch on it. Noah Fant re-signed, so not any movement there. Another running back move, we have Zach Moss going to the Bengals. Now, I think that there's a chance that Chase Brown is the starter, but we saw Zach Moss play really well for the Colts last year when Jonathan Taylor was out, or even like when Taylor came back at first, like Moss was taking touches away from him and looking pretty good. But now he goes to a Cincinnati offensive line that's much worse. So I feel like he's going to be overdrafted, even though like this is a small contract, 2 years, $8 million is like kind of nothing. But I think that people are going to look at Zach Moss and remember what he did with the Colts last year, and they're going to want to draft him, but they're not going to consider how bad the Bengals offensive line has been. So I think this is a downgrade from Moss. What do you think?
I think this is a huge downgrade, and I agree that I think there's going to be. I think maybe people will realize how good Joe Mixon is, having played behind that offensive line for quite, for several seasons. Yeah, Zach Moss is not good. He's not a good player.
Right. We're in agreement.
There's not a whole lot of analysis needed. Yeah, I just think he's not good.
Okay, well, a running back we both think is good. Josh Jacobs goes to the Packers. I think that this is an upgrade. He's done well with the Raiders, so it feels kind of weird to say that. But the Packer offensive line is better than the Raiders offensive line. Like that and quarterback are like the two weaknesses the Raiders have. Like, because the Raiders have an elite defense, they have two really good receivers, and they didn't make the playoffs last year because of terrible quarterbacking and terrible blocking outside of Colton Miller. So Jacobs is going to a better offensive line. He's going to a better team. He's going to a better coaching staff. You have to love this for Jacobs. So you probably agree, right? I would assume.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love Josh Jacobs. I think he's been underrated for most of his career thus far. I think this is a significant upgrade for him. Offensive line, the offensive scheme, the quarterback, just the stability. I feel like the Packers are just a much more stable organization. I just feel like players flourish there compared to that. Like, I really like the Packers this year to take a step forward. I really like Jordan Love. I think Josh Jacobs is a fantastic addition, fits the offense perfectly. He's a great player. And I think this will have a huge NFL real football impact. From a fantasy standpoint, I think I could see him taking a step forward, but like there's just, at the end of the day, like there's just not going to be enough yardage and touchdowns for people to look at the stats and to think, oh, this was a massive upgrade. So like, I think from a real NFL standpoint, it's a significant step forward for Josh Jacobs and the offense will be a part of. I liked Aaron Jones. I like him as a player. I just think Josh Jacobs is significantly better player overall. From a fantasy standpoint, though, this will be, I think he'll have slightly better stats just because the nature of stats, like there's only so many stats to go around.
Right. Where would you take Jacobs in fantasy?
I think first rounder. I think he's going to be borderline first rounder.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. I think he's like in the bottom half of the first round. I think he's like probably like 9, 10, 11. I'd have to look at it, but I think he's.
I wonder what the ADP will be. I foresee people being down on him. I don't know why he's been underrated in his career. I've owned a lot of them over the years because I feel like generally I'm always higher on him than most people tend to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're in agreement there. Gus Edwards, another running back, going to the Chargers. I saw a report saying that the Gus Edwards is going to be featured prominently on the Chargers. I'm like, man, I guess they haven't watched him play recently. I feel like he's so mediocre. I feel like the Chargers are going to draft a running back anyway in the second or third round. So I like ultimately this may not matter, and Edwards may not hold the job, but I think that going from Baltimore to the Chargers is a downgrade. Although I think Jim Harbaugh is going to change things or turn things around, but like the Chargers lost the receiver, so the offense is not going to be as good. So with that in mind, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's an upgrade because Edwards will start, I assume, to start the year, but I think that team is worse, so it's kind of weird situation.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Gus Edwards, he's just not a good player. Yeah, he's just a guy.
Right. Totally agree. I feel like by the end of the year, he's not going to be the starter. But I guess it depends on who they get. Like I think this running back class is not that good. But I feel like it's not going to be that difficult to find an upgrade over him. I think we skip Sam Darnold. So Vikings signed Aaron Jones, another running back move. I mean, I love this move for financially, just 1 year, $7 million. There's no risk. But I don't know. I feel like the offensive lines are about the same. But the problem is like the quarterbacking is going to be worse because Minnesota currently doesn't have a quarterback, Sam Darnold. So Aaron Jones's scoring equity is going to go down. So this is a worse situation for him as far as I'm concerned. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's an overall worse situation, but I don't think it's dramatic. I like this team. I don't know who's going to be their quarterback. I don't know if Sam Darnold's actually going to be their quarterback. I don't know if they're going to draft someone. I don't know if Josh Dobbs is going to somehow end up being their quarterback again. I have no idea what the situation is going to be there. But I think the Vikings have generally been with really poor quarterback play last year, they still had some decent stats as an offense. And so, I think Aaron Jones will be fine here. It's probably a slight downgrade. For real football terms, I mean, going from Green Bay to Minnesota is a downgrade. No offense to Minnesota fans, but it's a downgrade. Playing in Green Bay is better. But from a statistical standpoint, I could see Aaron Jones coming close to what he's produced on average, over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah. It'd be funny if Josh Dobbs starts for the Vikings because he signed with the Niners. So they they trade for him or something.
They did last year. I forgot he signed with the Niners.
It's interesting that the Vikings and the Niners basically traded quarterbacks because the Niners had Sam Darnold and the Vikings took him, and then the Vikings had Josh Dobbs and the Niners took him. And the Niners are paying Dobbs about $8 million less than the Vikings are paying Darnold. I think the Niners won that one, right?
Yeah. Although Darnold is a better player than Dobbs. Well, maybe not. Well,
I agree. But is he $8 million better than Dobbs? I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
No, probably not. Let's delve into Marcus Mariota. I'm just kidding.
He's terrible.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki, I think we can skip. I think he's also terrible. How about the Falcons signing Darnell Mooney? 3 years, $39 million, a massive overpay. But he's going to be the number 2 receiver. No, we actually talked about this.
We did.
We talked about this last week. So briefly, we want to say, what do you think about Mooney here? In my opinion, I think it's an upgrade because he's going to be with Cousins, a better passer, and he's the number 2 receiver. They're paying him this much money, so I feel like they're going to get him involved. But overall, I just don't know what to expect. So we want to briefly touch on this.
Yeah, I don't know if this is maybe it is a slight upgrade from a fantasy perspective. I just don't think I said this a couple weeks ago. I'm not sure Darnell Mooney's a good player. I don't think he's a bad player. I'm just not confident he's a good player.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's hard to have confidence that he's going to put up. And I'm just always of the opinion you might look like you're the second guy on paper now, but if you suck, they'll find someone to replace you. They'll pull some joker off the street, some joker off of someone's practice squad, someone out of the XFL or whatever the UFL or whatever it's called nowadays. I can easily see by week 10, Mooney's not even in the offensive game plan. I can easily see that happening.
So you're after all, you're saying I wasted $270.
I don't know. I'm reserving judgment.
Okay, fair enough. Naeem Hines signed. I feel like we skipped that. Derrick Henry to the Ravens. you got to think that this is an upgrade for Henry. Although the Baltimore did cut some of their offensive linemen, they lost John Simpson and Morgan Moses. Although they have players waiting in the wings. Like Baltimore's a smart organization. Like they're not doing this without a plan. And like Tennessee with Henry earlier in his career was amazing because they had Taylor Lewan, they had all these great blockers. But by the end of his tenure in Tennessee, it was just awful. Like the offensive line took such a hit, and now he's going to have better blocking in front of him. So this is definitely an upgrade. Now he's had such a workload over the years that like it's tough to trust him. But if he I like him much more in Baltimore than I would in another season with Tennessee.
Yeah, you might be right. The one area that I'm concerned about is, are they going to be committed to him the way Tennessee was? No. Derrick Henry, for like the most of his career, you would look up with it'd be like 5 minutes into the fourth quarter, like 10 minutes left in the game, and it's like Derrick Henry has 19 carries for 50 yards. Like that was like the norm. And then like on carry 20, carry 21, carry 22, he's getting, and then like carry 25, he has the 90-yard run for the touchdown. I've never seen a running back my entire life, but that was because Vrabel just knew, like, hey, Derrick Henry, it's kind of cliche, you wear it on the defense, which really doesn't happen nearly as often as people think. But, like, legitimately, Derrick Henry wore down the defense. But it took a real commitment from the coaching staff for him to be, like, highly involved early in the game. Baltimore throws the ball more than Tennessee did. They have a quarterback who runs the ball more than any quarterback in Tennessee did. And in theory, they have some other potential offensive weapons in theory. Like, are they going to be committed to Derrick Henry being that in the first 2 or 3 quarters for him to kind of be the guy that he's been in the fourth quarter all his career? Like that to me is a big question mark. And so can they, if he's not really involved in the game plan early in the game, can he still be that kind of guy? Like that to me is a major question mark. He's just a really unique style player. We've never seen anything like Derrick Henry. I mean, Brandon Jacobs is kind of like him, but even him is totally different. We've never seen a player like Derrick Henry, his style of game. And so I mean, Mike Vrabel was so smart how they used him. Is Baltimore going to do the same? As you said, they're a smart organization. I'd like to believe they would, but until you see it, I'm a slight hesitant on Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it's a fair criticism of Henry's outlook for next year. I don't think they're going to be as dedicated to him, even though they are a smarter team. Just because I feel like they don't have to be. Like Tennessee had really nothing else. They had to rely on. They had AJ Brown for a while, but still, like they had Ryan Tannehill, a quarterback, who was like had to really rely on Henry and Brown. So like Lamar Jackson is not that sort of player. Although like Baltimore's going to have more leads too. Like I feel like he's going to have more opportunities to score touchdowns. So I think that could balance it out. It's hard to kind of like project Henry, I think, in Baltimore, because like we've seen him in such a unique situation,
I'm really curious what his ADP is going to be. I'm struggling to really figure out what his fantasy ADP is going to be in the fall. Like, is he going to be a 3rd round pick, or do you think he's going to like drop in people's mind? Like if he's a 4th round pick, I think I'm interested. If he's a 2nd round pick, I'm not interested.
I think he'll be early 3rd round. If I had to guess, I think late 2nd, early 3rd round. That's where I'm thinking. Could be wrong,
I probably won't be interested if that's the case.
Yeah, it's a tough sell at the end of the 2nd round. If you're like talking about like 306, 307, I think that's fair. That group of running backs usually see the top running backs in the 1st round, and then you see like then you see the receivers, like the elite receivers go, and then you see the 2nd group of running backs, and you see the 2nd group of receivers, and then that 3rd group of running backs goes in the 3rd round. Like I feel like he's going to be in that group just because he's an older player. But I feel like him being on a better team could generate some excitement. So I don't know. It's a hard projection. But I think he'll be like 304, 305, 306, 307, something like that.
Yeah. It'll probably be slightly out of the price range I want to pay.
Yeah, probably same for me. So speaking of Tennessee, they signed Calvin Ridley, 4 years, $92 million. Outrageous money for this. I think this is a clear downgrade because think about the quarterbacks really has played with in his career. He had Matt Ryan in his prime and like toward the end of his prime. and then he had Trevor Lawrence, and now he gets Will Levis. So like he's either been like gambling or complaining the entire time of his career, and now he goes to a team that's always run first and has Will Levis. Like I feel like this is a disaster waiting to happen. I don't think Ridley lasts more than 2 seasons in Tennessee. I think he's a colossal bust. I think he's going to be overdrafted, even though he's on a worse team. What do you think?
I think I probably agree with you. There are moments where we see talent in Calvin Ridley. We go, oh my gosh, the talent, or like the athleticism, and then he's just a knucklehead. Like it's mental or it's concentration. I think, I would imagine Calvin Ridley is going to be highly drafted. People are going to like him a lot, and it's going to be a total disaster, which would not be all that different than what we saw this year in Jacksonville. Right? A lot of people had him redrafted really high. I was all over Christian Kirk because I just didn't believe in Calvin Ridley, and so that really paid off for me. Calvin Ridley was just terribly inconsistent all year long. I mean, it was a terrible ride for those who owned him.
Yeah, I mean, he had some amazing games, and then he's completely disappeared in others. And that was with Trevor Lawrence. So think about what he's going to do or not do with Will Levis. Can't Make an Eagle says Baltimore should use Henry sparingly, then unleash him for the playoffs. I think there's another player who fits that mold better, but I could see that argument based on Henry's age and like just the workload in his career. What do you, if you're in Baltimore, how like would you approach it this way? Like, kind of give him like the kid gloves in September, October, and then like come Thanksgiving, just use him as a wrecking ball. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he's such a different style player. Oh, my cork board just fell off my wall here, but let me go. Anyway,
earthquake over there.
I used to be. I mean, I used to rip on Derrick Henry so much when he came in the league because I just didn't believe that style player could last, and I was wrong. He's proven me wrong. He's the kind of guy that to be successful, he's got to have the ball a lot. I think I'm convinced of that. And how do you like use him sparingly, don't give him the ball a lot, and then decide to kind of switch your offense? In essence, you're switching your offense at some point later in the year or in the playoffs. Like that doesn't feel like a recipe for success. But yeah, I'm not sure. Honestly, at the end of the day, if I were the Ravens, I wouldn't have signed him. I don't think I would have signed him. I don't think it's a bad signing. I'm just not sure he would have been the guy I would have loved to get.
So I think that I really think they needed to sign him. Here's why: because they match up so poorly against the Chiefs defense. Because the Chiefs defense is great against the pass. They've always been great against the pass because Andy Reid really cherishes his cornerbacks and like his pass rushers. Like they're built to stop the pass. The Chiefs' weakness defensively is against the run, and Baltimore just hasn't been able to take advantage of that. And I think like having a power running game to counter the Kansas City defense, I think that they really need to do that to pass the Chiefs. It's like that really hurt them in the AFC Championship because like they had to keep throwing into a great pass defense that they just couldn't run. And so I think like Henry is just a perfect solution for that game plan.
Yeah.
So we had the Bills signing Curtis Samuel. I like the signing. I think he's a good gadget player. He's a pretty unique player, and he's been pretty good. And he's going to an offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, who he played for in Carolina. So he's going to fit right in. So, I mean, it's a better quarterback, obviously, than Sam Howell. And Josh Allen should make good use of Samuel. So I like this move a lot. We'll see what they do in the draft. Like if they draft another receiver, it's going to hurt him, obviously. But if he's the second wide receiver coming into the season, I'm definitely going to like him a lot. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be the best situation that Samuel's been in his career. Going back to Carolina or Washington, like I think this is the best situation he's been in. I think he's more than just a gadget player. I think he's a decent slot player. And sometimes he is gadget, right? I mean, sometimes he lines up in the backfield, he end around, reverses type deal. He's done those kind of things. He's played a little bit of special teams in his career. I think he's a decent player that'll fit in the system really well. I just still am not convinced that like this offense is so Josh Allen focused. Like it's Josh Allen spreading the ball around or it's Josh Allen running. And unless that shifts, it's going to be hard to really rely on Samuel week in and week out. Like Samuel's never going to have some really good weeks, I think. But just like when are those weeks going to come? It feels hard to rely on him. unless we see early in the season that Josh Allen really is making concerted effort to rely on his weapons and not just take off. Mm-hmm. It's hard. I mean, we've seen this with running quarterbacks so often. It's so hard to get those guys to change their philosophy. But I agree with you. I like the signing overall. It's hard to know whether or not Samuel will be a reliable option week in and week out. So I think he's going to be more of a bye week fill in flex play type player.
So in relation to what you just talked about, Josh Allen running, something to watch out for next year is that, like, something we saw this past season is that Josh Allen said that he wasn't going to run that much until the second half of the year, just to kind of preserve his, his health and whatnot. So if the same thing happens next year, you can see Curtis Samuel having a better first half than second half, and we saw that with Stephon Diggs too. Like I could see Samuel starting off hot. If Josh Allen's not going to run that much, and then like in the second half of the year, once Allen starts running, like you might want to sell high on Samuel to get rid of him. It's a strategy.
I could see that. Yeah, that actually could. That very well could play out that way, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So we move on. The Chiefs got Marquise Brown. I mean, you got to love this upgrade from Kyler Murray to Patrick Mahomes. Just a slight upgrade there. He's the unquestioned deep threat, number one deep threat on the team. You have Rashee Rice underneath, and you're gonna have Marquise Brown over the top. And like they try to do that with Marquez Valdes-Scantling. It failed miserably. Brown is such a better option. And I mean, if you look at the quarterbacks he's had in his NFL career, he's had some like good ones on paper, like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, but like passing wise, like they're both run first quarterbacks, but like passing wise, they're not even close to Mahomes. I mean, granted, right. Like most quarterbacks aren't close to Mahomes. So like this is the best passing quarterback Brown has ever had in his career, like by far. So I love this for Brown. I think this really could have him producing like the best numbers he's ever had in his career.
Yeah, I mean, and like Marquise Brown is like he's a fine player. He's fine. Nothing wrong with him. Yeah, he's got, but like the only reason he's relevant now in a pretty substantial way is because of where he's playing and who he's playing with, and that's because he's Mahomes' caddy. Like that's it. Yeah, I think this is a great signing for them. It's a great addition to their offense, and so this is a huge upgrade for him. I don't know where he's going to get drafted, and I haven't really thought about receivers as much just yet. But yeah, this has got to be a significant upgrade in every way. And I think this is also an upgrade for Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice has got to get better. By the way, Rashee Rice, in the NFL, I think his ADOT, his average depth of target, was ranked, I think, 96th in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's really bad. Like his average depth of target was like 3.6 yards or something stupid like that. Like, bro, you got to get down the field a little bit. Like 3.6 yards. Like I can get 3.6 yards down the field. I mean, I would fall over instantly out of breath if I ran 3 yards, but I could at least get there. I mean, it's all bubble screens. It's all horizontal with him. It's behind line of scrimmage. It's like they're basically like you're just throwing him in the flat constantly. So like they've got to get Rice more involved in an intermediate game. And like what better way to do that than to scheme safeties down the field and open up the middle of the field? Like that's so like Rice did that in college. He was good. I think he's a better receiver overall than Brown at this point in their career. But I think Rice is the kind of guy that could really benefit from this. And so this is a great schematic fit for the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, and I agree with you about Rashee Rice getting better from it. Just I feel like it's going to help everyone. Packers re-signed AJ Dillon for some reason. I don't think we care about that. Just don't know. I don't know if you want to touch on Osborne. I mean, he played in Minnesota for a while. I mean, I feel like he's going to start in New England.
He might be their best receiver.
Well, I mean, like Kendrick. I like Kendrick Bourne a lot. He's coming off a 20 ACL. Right. And Damari Douglas is a good slot receiver, I think, or maybe like above average slot receiver. So Osborne might be their top outside receiver.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad.
Osborne he's not phenomenal. He's not a great athlete. He's mediocre. But I think he's slightly better than the average person realizes. Having watched him in Minnesota for several years, I think he's slightly better than the average fantasy player realizes that. And we don't know what this offense is going to be. With new coaching scheme, new quarterback, who know, like it's hard to know what this is going to be, but maybe Osborne could very well end up until Kendrick Bourne comes back from ACL, until he's fully healthy, which probably he's not till late in the year, second half of the year. I think you easily see Osborne being the get the most targets, between him and Hunter Henry getting the kind of splitting, being the top target getters. I could easily see that taking place. So, or maybe running backs coming out of the backfield becomes a big part of their offense. So again, I think you can do way worse. I mean, Osborne's not going to be a high draft pick, obviously. Like, you're going to be able to draft them in, the last round of your fantasy draft, in most drafts probably. He may even go undrafted in a lot of leagues because he's not a name of any kind. So I think it's worth a flyer probably in most leagues.
You know what helps him is that Bill Belichick's not there, because Osborne is I think he's some talent. I agree with you, but like he makes a lot of mistakes. Like he'll drop a lot of passes or he'll fumble. Like he just makes these boneheaded plays sometimes. And like Belichick not being there, I think is great for him, because Belichick would like bench him right away. For like by week 3, he'd bench him. But Belichick's not there anymore, so I feel like he's gonna have more of a leash, So I think that'll help him. Right, and I do assume that the Patriots are going to draft a receiver in like the second round, but you never know. They've drafted so many bust receivers over the years, and I know that a lot of that has been on Belichick, but still, like, you just don't know what they're going to get yet. The last player that we're going to talk about, Mike Williams, signs with the Jets, 1 year, $15 million. This is like, if I feel like most teams would have signed Mike Williams for this much, I would have hated it. But I feel like the Jets are in such a position to take, they have to take risks, like just because of what their situation is with Rodgers. So I like the move for them.
Next vice president of the United States.
What'd you say?
Next vice president of the United States.
Of course. If RFK. But like, people are saying that the Rodgers is going to retire. By the way, people were going to say that Rodgers is going to retire because he was going to be vice president or the VP pick. And I'm like, why would he have to retire? Like, first of all, the VP does nothing, and like, second, he wouldn't be sworn in until the next season. So anyway, he could still play, and he could hold his rallies at the stadiums after the games. Like, I think it'd be perfect for him.
Exactly.
All right. So, but anyway, with this Mike Williams signing, it's tough to gauge, because I feel like he's just going to get injured wherever he goes. So it doesn't, like, it's still neutral. If I'm the Jets, like, this is the perfect bubble wrap player. Like, Cam Eagle was talking about using Henry sparingly until the playoffs. Like, that's exactly what the Jets should do. Like, they should not even let Mike Williams play coming off a torn ACL until like Thanksgiving, and just like get him going there. Like, I would just sideline him, put him in bubble wrap until Thanksgiving, and then just let him go. And there is precedent for this. The Jets kind of did this with Breece Hall last year. The Jets did not give Breece Hall more than 10 carries in any game until like late October against Denver. And then they were finally like, okay, the shackles are unleashed. Breece Hall's going to go nuts, and that's what he did second half of the year. So the Jets, to their credit, as dumb as an organization as they've been over the years, they've at least handled this ACL situation well, at least with Breece Hall. So I think they might do the same thing with Mike Williams, because if they don't, we've seen like a long history of players coming off torn ACLs suffer other injuries because they come back too early. It's like usually an Achilles. And so I think that if the Jets are done with this, they could really pay for it. But if they're smart and just rest Williams for the most part, like give him let him play like 20 snaps per game, until November, and then let him go. So it could really work out for him, like especially playing with Aaron Rodgers down the stretch. But like, I wouldn't trust him in fantasy just because of that torn ACL. What do you think?
I think this is a terrible signing, and I think this is a ridiculous, stupid choice. I can't believe they gave him $15 million. You gave it a B+. This is like a D-. And from a real NFL standpoint and from a fantasy standpoint, I think this is a downgrade for Mike Williams coming off an ACL. I just always think he's been terrible, inconsistent. And like, we've seen so many receivers when like they're drafted in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft. They never quite get going at their first team. They go to a second team, and then they fade off in the oblivion. Like, that's always the case. Like, we've never seen a receiver get drafted in the first 2 rounds, be mediocre or inconsistent for 3, 4, 5 seasons, go to another team, and then all of a sudden have a breakout. It's never happened, and it never will happen because those guys. There's a reason why those guys get moved teams. You add into the fact that you have a guy coming off of ACL. Like I think Mike Williams sucks. I think he's overrated, and I think this was a terrible signing for the Jets. And I want no part of Mike Williams on my fantasy teams next year whatsoever. I do think what you're saying makes sense. Like, okay, bubble wrap this guy, don't let him play a bunch. But I'm like, I don't want to spend $15 million a guy that I got to now bubble wrap for half the year. Like that feels like a terrible investment.
It does. Like I said, for most teams, I would have graded this poorly, but I think the Jets are just they're in such a situation that I think they have to gamble. They have to swing for the fences, even though it's probably strikeout.
Like Hollywood Brown got $11 million for 1 year. Why would you not throw $15 million at him?
Yeah,
like maybe he wouldn't want to play with Rodgers. Maybe he would want to play with Mahomes. I don't know, but like if you're going to overpay for someone, like gosh, Mike Williams, I just feel. I mean, I would have overpaid for Curtis Samuel over him. I would have overpaid for. I would overpay for Devontae Parker over. Well, maybe that's not too. Maybe that's.
we skipped Devontae Parker. I don't know if you want to go to him,
but Mike Williams. I owned him in a few fantasy leagues early in his career, and I never loved the ride, and I don't like the player. I don't like the style. I don't like these guys that just like he can run two good routes. Like he runs the deep 9 route, the deep seam route, or the post. Like it just doesn't. He's just a lazy route runner. He thinks he's great. Every touchdown he celebrates like he's won the Super Bowl. Just get out of here, dude. Go pound dirt.
Okay, so I guess you're not a fan of Mike Williams,
No.
from what I gather. No, I like Mike Williams more than you do. I mean, obviously the concern is his health. He always gets hurt, so you can't rely on him. So yeah, this is an overpay. But the Jets have to go for it. So I don't hate it. If this is like Tennessee signing him or the Giants, like this would have been an F or like not an F. It's only 1 year, so it would have been like a D or C minus.
I mean, I foresee this offense generally just going through Bryce Hall, not through Aaron Rodgers. I mean, is that you feel like a fair assessment?
Yeah, I love Breece Hall. I think he's like what he I hate comparing him to Marshall Faulk, but like what he did in the second half of the year, receiving wise, like really reminded me of Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, he's not the pure runner, Marshall Faulk.
Right, just as a receiver.
But he's a very good runner between the tackles too. I mean, I'm not dogging him there. I mean, he's very good. So I just foresee him being the engine of the offense.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. But I mean, he's someone who could help Breece Hall, just as long as he's healthy, of course. Just like drawing a lot of attention in addition to Garrett Wilson. Just getting the team away from the line of scrimmage, I think would help a lot. Mike is with Kenny on Mike Williams, so I'm not a huge Mike Williams fan by any means. I just think that I think the Jets had to take a gamble. So. Anyway, all right, that's about it. Thanks for watching, everyone, for watching and commenting. Really appreciate it. And Kenny, loved doing this with you. We had some disagreements, but I think we were in lockstep for the most part. So we'll be able to laugh at some of our league mates for drafting some of the players early, I think.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, that's always a blast. All right, so Kenny, anything to plug? Maybe your website?
Thecapisfake.com. I got lots of articles on there. Check it out. I've been promising some new content that I've not yet published, but there's lots of old stuff on there about the salary cap. So I did a deep dive into the Eric Armstead Niners contract and why they cut him, and so I'm going to be publishing that. But anyone who's interested in learning why the salary cap is fake, you can go to thecapisfake.com.
Awesome. Looking forward to that Armstead article. We'll be back on Saturday with Tom. He's doing the second appearance this week. So looking forward to that. Tom, super excited about the Magic, who got a big win tonight over the Pelicans. Tom loves the Magic at, I think it was 100-1 to win the Eastern Conference this year.
Wow.
Which is like, I think we both expect the Celtics to do it, but 100-1 gives you some major hedging opportunities. So I'm a big fan of that. So we're and by the way, Tom is watching Game of Thrones for the first time. He just watched episode 7 of season 1 where Littlefinger betrays Ned Stark. It's the episode where King Robert died. And Kenny, I'm rewatching the show to like be able to talk to Tom about this on the show. And I forget how great the show was. It was so good. The first season, it's not even the best season. I feel like season 3 was the best one, the one with the red wedding. First season was so good. Man, just the interaction with the characters, the acting. Mark Addy as King Robert, obviously Sean Bean as Ned Stark. Both of them were amazing. Yep. And just oh man, it was so good. Just the dialogue between everyone. I was like where was this in season 7 and 8? It was just wasn't there.
I just introduced my wife to The Wire, so we just watched the first 2 episodes of The Wire tonight.
How'd she like it?
She at first was a little bit suspect, but then at the end of the first episode, she's like, I could watch another one. I was like, all right. And so at the end of the second one, she was like, that's kind of interesting. Like I could tell, like, all right. So, Littlefinger, the actor who plays Littlefinger, is also in The Wire. He plays the councilman.
He plays the same character.
It's the same snake of a guy, right?
Right.
Different universe, same character.
Right. It's so funny. He's so perfect for that role.
And so yeah, my wife and I were I was talking like, yeah, he's on Game of Thrones as well. She's like, oh, okay.
Has she ever watched Game of Thrones?
No. People who have watched me talk about it. I have to kind of coax my wife into watching things. She's not like super open to the shows I like. So I have to kind of sell her a little bit.
Okay. Well, maybe if she likes the Littlefinger actor, she can be like, oh, he's also in Game of Thrones, the same role. Want to watch? And plus he's in it much earlier. Like he wasn't introduced until season 3, right? In The Wire. Yeah, he's much later. His first episode was episode 3 in Game of Thrones. So he's much more prominent, at least early on. Sue says Brunson only got to 26. I was watching that closely. I saw we had Jalen Brunson under 27.5 points tonight for our NBA prop. So it was nice to hit that. He had 22 entering the fourth quarter, so I was kind of concerned, but he only got to 26. So nice win there. So we get to root in the Hawks +9 for the rest of the night. That's our other NBA picks. So we have NBA picks as well on the site, plus other great content that Charlie posts, and then my mediocre at best content as well. So you check all that out at WalterFootball.com. And yeah, we're like I said, we're going to be back Saturday with Tom, and then normal schedule next week, I assume. But yeah, once again, the guys, thanks so much for watching, commenting. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. Kenny, love doing this with you. And I will talk to you next week. And everyone, have a great early weekend, and I'll see you on Saturday.
You man, Walt.